කෝඩියෙන් භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, set the ball rolling. Administration of PFIZER doses set to kick off in Colombo tomorrow for over 55s.
PFIZER vaccines will be administered to the people who obtained AstraZeneca as their first dose in the Colombo Municipal Council area. It means Colombo 1 to 15.
Fruitful discussions. The strike launched by all health sector trade unions called off after talks with the health minister. Polls apart. The Health Ministry and the SLMA offer differing views on contact tracing as the WHO warns against rushing into normalcy. Window dressing. The TNA questions the need for a convention against torture bill.
One wonders why this window dressing is being made. If the magistrates are not conscientious enough to do what the law has required them to do, can you by force have them do that?
While the government defends its necessity as a national need.
We bring these laws because Sri Lanka need to be a constitutional democracy.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 6th of July, 2021.
නම ලයිෆ් බොයි වෙනිවල් සහ කෝමාරිකා විෂ බීජ වලින් රටටම ආරක්ෂාවයි සමටත් සුමුදුයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanaka. Now, Sri Lanka's vaccination drive against COVID-19 will change gear tomorrow, with the island set to adopt the mix and match approach. Armed with 26,000 doses of the PFIZER vaccine, those who await the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine will be given the PFIZER jab. The rollout will start from Colombo, with walk-in vaccinations also open up to the public. The government believes that the country's population of over 30 years of age can be given at least one dose by September. The national vaccination drive against COVID-19 commenced on the 29th of January this year, following the arrival of 500,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine as a donation from India the day before. Then there was a global snag. Several factors culminated in creating a shortage of AstraZeneca vaccines, especially India's Serum Institute-produced Covishield jab, which Sri Lanka had placed orders for. With the United States prioritising their own inoculation drive, the country stopped the raw materials needed for vaccine production being exported to India. To compound the matters, the Serum Institute's factory caught fire and India's own COVID situation spiralled out of control, leaving no option but for the Narendra Modi administration to suspend vaccine exports. As the situation left Sri Lanka high and dry in procuring vaccines, China donated 600,000 doses of its Sinopharm jab in April. But by then, the jab had not been approved for emergency use by the World Health Organization. A consignment of Russia's Sputnik vaccine soon followed. Fast forward to present day, and it is evident that the island's vaccines' fortunes have improved. As of last evening, 3,104,966 persons had been administered with the first dose of any vaccine against COVID-19. From that figure, 1,269,101 persons are fully immunized, meaning they are given both first and second doses of the relevant vaccines. Yet there's a problem. AstraZeneca vaccine doses are still scarce, and there are over 500,000 people who were given the first dose months ago, waiting for the second dose. It was a common problem faced by many countries apart from vaccine hoarding financially well-off nations. That's when studies in Germany, South Korea and several other European countries showed that vaccine mix and match can work. Based on their results, the World Health Organization also approved the PFIZER vaccine to be used in place of the second dose of AstraZeneca. In that backdrop, the Advisory Committee on Communicable Diseases at the Ministry of Health in Sri Lanka too approved similar and went a step further and approved the use of the MODERNA jab to replace the AstraZeneca vaccine's second dose. As part of the first batch of a purchase order of 5,026,000 PFIZER vaccine doses arrived in the island yesterday. As per the subject State Minister, The government wants to end the wait of the people for the AstraZeneca second dose, with the rollout of PFIZER planned for tomorrow, with the intended recipients to be notified via SMS about the date, time and venue of vaccination.
Those PFIZER vaccines will be administered to the people who already obtained AstraZeneca as their first dose in the Colombo Municipal Council area. It means Colombo 1 to 15, people above 55 years of age and already obtained AstraZeneca as their first dose are eligible to get the PFIZER vaccine as their second dose. According to the agreement between the State Pharmaceutical Corporation and PFIZER company, within this year we will receive 5 million doses of PFIZER vaccines. Priority will be given for the people who already obtained AstraZeneca as their first dose. According to our calculation, there are about 570,000 people who already obtained Covishield vaccine as the first dose and waiting for the second dose. So we will give the priority for those people to get the PFIZER vaccine. Once it is finished, then we will decide what is the next eligible group. Probably pregnant mothers and high-risk group will be eligible in the next round to obtain the PFIZER vaccines.
It is fair to say that the national inoculation program is now in full swing, with walk-in vaccination being opened up for the general public. With health sector trade unions launching a continuous strike over pay and promotions, the Triforce's personnel stepped in and conducted inoculations at selected hospitals and centres. In the Western Province, people over the age of 30 can walk in and get the jab. Outside the Western Province, however, only those over 60 can do so, for now. The walk-in vaccination was in high demand.
Yesterday alone, we have given 133,000 doses as the first dose and about 28,000 as the second dosage of the Sinopharm vaccine. So altogether, it's around 150,000. So once these current issues in the paramedical and other supplementary medical services are solved, we can go up to 200,000 doses per day. Target given by the President is to finish the administering the first dosage by the end of September. So we are moving ahead in successful way. It seems that we can achieve the goal by end of September. But to administer both doses, it will take some time, probably another 3 or 4 months.
අද සේවසකට වැනි ජනතා විශ්වාසය නව සංයෝගයක රයිනෝ රෝෆිං සහ සීලිං ෂීට්.
Now then, the 14 health trade unions that launched a continuous strike yesterday called it off today at 4 p.m. following a meeting with Minister of Health Pavitra Vanyarachi. They, however, warned that they will take to the streets if their demands are not met during next Monday's cabinet meeting. The demands are centred on pay and promotions.
14 health trade unions launched a continuous strike yesterday morning after their demands, mainly centred on pay and promotions, were not met during the token strike, which they launched on the 2nd of July. Their trade union actions continues today as well after the meeting they had with Minister of Health Pavitra Vanyarachi failed. Today, another meeting was convened by the Health Minister with the trade unions at the ministry this afternoon. Following the meeting, the trade unions decided to call off the strike at 4 p.m. as the minister had promised to present a cabinet paper pertaining to the demands of the trade unions. The trade unions, however, warned that they will take to the streets if their demands are not met. Speaking to media, the Public Health Inspectors Union said that they will return to their duties from tonight.
Big 3.
Now, the Ministry of Health says that the recent drop in cases is not a sign of the third wave easing and attributed it to the delays caused by the trade union action launched by the health sector unions, including public health inspectors. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warns countries against premature rushing back to normalcy, adding that there could be a high price to pay for impatience. The warning comes amid growing concerns over the spreading of the Delta variant of the coronavirus, which is now the dominant variant across the world.
Sri Lanka faced a third wave of the novel coronavirus triggered by the unruly behaviour of the public during the Sinhala and Tamil New Year season. Since the third wave, aggravated by the UK-originated Alpha variant, the island recorded daily COVID-19 cases in the excess of 3,000. The country did see a gradual decline in case numbers, however yesterday saw the lowest of them all, with a caseload of 869. Those infections were detected from 24 districts, with Kalutara recording the highest of 98 cases. The district of Nuwara recorded 96 infections, and the cases reported in Colombo was as low as 44. At a time when cases of the much-feared Delta variant is detected from the society, which is more transmissible than any other variant to emerge to date, can the daily caseload of 869 be accurate?
සංඛ්‍යාව නිවැරදි නමුත් ඒ සංඛ්‍යාවට වඩා රෝගීන් සිටිය යුතුයි. අන්න ඒකයි අපි කියන්නේ. මොකද මේ අඩුවීම අපිට කොහොමත්ම පවතින තත්වයක් යටතේ මේකේ අඩුවීමක් නෙවෙයි. ඒකට හේතුව තමයි මේ සියලුම රෝගීන්ව හොයා ගැනීමේ ක්‍රියාවලිය මේ දිනවල මේ පවතින වෘත්තීය සමිති ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයේ නිසා සාම්පල් ගැනීමේ අඩුවක් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. රසායනාගාරවල පරීක්ෂණ කිරීමේ අඩුවක් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ එන දත්ත සම්ප්‍රේෂණය කිරීමේ අඩුපාඩු
Since the Health Ministry does not accept that the drop in daily caseload is a fair reflection of the prevailing COVID situation, the consensus is that decisions on control measures will not be based on the present data, as it is not a true reflection of the prevailing situation. It also believes that the trade union action launched by certain health sector factions has contributed to the drop in numbers, as data communication, sample gathering and other duties had been impacted by the strike.
මේ එක්කෙනෙක් හමු වෙනවයි කියන්නේ සමහර විට දහස් ගණනක් මේ වෙනකොට ඉන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒ හැම කෙනෙක්ම වෙන වෙනම හොයාගෙන යෑමට අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ. ඒකට හේතුව අධික වියදමක් දරලා හොයාගත්ත අය කියලා අපි ඒ අයට කරන්න අමුතු ප්‍රතිකාරයක් නැහැ. වැදගත් දේ මේ ප්‍රභේදය දැන් ලංකාවේ තියෙනවා. අපිට සියලුම කොවිඩ් වෛරස් වලට කරන ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයම තමයි මේකටත් කරන්න ඕනේ.
However, the Sri Lanka Medical Association begs to differ.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී රෝගීන් සොයා හඹා යෑමත් ඉතාමත්ම වැදගත්. ඉන්න රෝගීන් ප්‍රමාණය PCR ප්‍රමාණය කරන ප්‍රමාණය පුළුවන් තරම් වැඩි කරලා රෝගීන් හොයාගෙන රෝගීන්ට ප්‍රතිකාර කිරීම සහ සමීපතයන් වෙන්කර තබා රෝගය තවදුරටත් පාලනය කිරීමට ඒ කළ යුතු ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ඉතාමත් උනන්දුවෙන් කිරීම කියන එකත් වැදගත් වෙනවා. තවත් රැල්ලක් එන එක බලක්
Speaking at a media briefing, the SLMA expressed displeasure over frivolous behaviour of the public and warned against taking the situation lightly.
අපිට අද රෝගය ආසාදනය වුණොත් රෝගය ආසාදනය වෙන සෑම 100ක්ගෙන්ම 5%කට විතර අසාධ්‍ය වීමේ ප්‍රවණතාවක් තියෙනවා තව සුමාන දෙකක් ඇතුළත. ඒකෙන් 2% විතර ජීවිතක්ෂයට පත්වීමේ ප්‍රවණතාවක් තියෙනවා තවත් සුමාන දෙකක් විතර යනකොට.
Sri Lanka relaxed the travel restrictions on the 5th of June, went about bringing some semblance or normalcy back. It had been a tricky situation for the government to navigate, with the health sector vehemently calling for a strict lockdown, while the state was compelled to have some sectors of the economy running. In any case, the message from the World Health Organization is simple. Rushing back to normalcy will have its consequences.
I think overall we've made a very premature rush back to full normality. And I think we're going to pay a price for that because we're not there at vaccination. The variants are really there and we haven't protected enough people. And I honestly think that we need to think our way through this, that we're opening up way too quickly for the epidemiologic situation and the risks associated with that.
Maybe the WHO warning is timely. 35 employees of a private apparel factory in Valimada tested positive for the virus today. It prompted the temporary closure of the factory. Our correspondent on the ground said that transporting the infected for medical care was also delayed owing to health sector strike, which included public health inspectors, which was being worked off. So far today, 650 new cases of the novel coronavirus have been confirmed from the island, taking the active caseload to 27,222. What's more, 1,717 COVID-19 patients were given the all clear today to leave treatment centres following confirmation of their recovery. With that, the total number of recoveries in the country rose to 236,659.
We will see you on the other side of this break. Bear with us.
ගෙදරකට තේ හදනවා කියන්නේ වෙනම වැඩක්. මැලිබන් තේ ගෙදර පදමට තේ.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, following a report released by ratings agency Fitch Ratings on Sunday that warned of banks coming under pressure from investments in international sovereign bonds and Sri Lanka development bonds, the central bank responded today, calling it efforts to undermine the sector. In its communique, the central bank assures that banks have followed all Basel III requirements in their investments and reiterated the government assurance for meeting its debt commitments and maintaining an unblemished record.
The central bank issued a media release today in response to recent ratings agency reports pertaining to Sri Lanka's banking sector earlier this week, accusing them of undermining the banking sector's stability and of fueling speculation on investments by Sri Lankan banks in international sovereign bonds and Sri Lanka development bonds. The communique released last evening says that all licensed banks in the country are fully compliant with capital adequacy and liquidity requirements based on Basel III international standards, indicating a resilient banking sector. It also explains that in a move to increase investments and dollar inflows, the central bank took the decision to permit licensed commercial banks and the state-owned National Savings Bank to invest externally sourced US dollar funds in denominated ISBs and SLDBs after considering every possible risk. It added that in order to mitigate risks of foreign currency exposure to the government, the CBSL specified a Capital 3 charge under the Basel III framework for credit and a general capital charge for market risk under the Basel III framework for trading book investments in government securities as well. Further, to mitigate risk arising from foreign currency borrowings, licensed commercial banks were given borrowing limits computed based on its external credit rating and capital adequacy and expressed as a percentage of its total assets, ranging between 5 and 10% of the latest audited accounts. The central bank says that foreign currency liquidity positions were closely monitored through Basel III liquidity coverage monitoring tools as well. In conclusion, it reiterated government assurances of ensuring all debt service obligations are met on time and maintaining its unblemished debt service record, including its $1 billion ISB maturing on the 27th of this month.
Now, at the weekly cabinet media briefing held today, co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana refuted claims that Sri Lanka is set to face a looming food crisis due to the shortage of fertilizers, saying that agricultural yield data from 2016 and 2017, where a marked decrease in imports was witnessed, showed no effect on yields in the country. The ministry also added, or minister I should say, also added that the current distribution issues are not due to a lack of supplies, but rather due to fertilizer companies scaling back their distribution due to current import bans.
The cabinet this week approved the awarding of the contract for the construction of the second phase of the Colombo Fort multi-story car park and mixed development project to the company that submitted the lowest competitive bid, namely TUDAWE Brothers Private Limited. Further, the cabinet also approved the presentation of a gazette notification under the Value Added Tax Act in Parliament for approval, mandating the completion and submission of Schedules 6 and 7, which will be available on the Inland Revenue Department website for comparisons to be made of export values submitted by exporters with export data submitted to Sri Lanka Customs. Approval was also granted for the implementation of new tax proposals in the 2021 budget that aim to encourage entrepreneurs to disclose income and assets with exemptions from taxes, penalties and interest on the payment of a 1% tax on voluntary disclosure and free from investigation and prosecution as well. A government gazette in this regard is set to be published by the Minister of Finance and presented to Parliament for approval. In addition, the cabinet also approved a decision for the Paddy Marketing Board to purchase a significant portion of the estimated 1.5 million tonnes of paddy from the Yalla season at specific guaranteed prices. Also approved was a proposal by the Minister of Justice to appoint 2 committees to make recommendations on compensation claims for both the affected fisheries and non-fisheries communities from the Express Pearl disaster. Meanwhile, responding to media queries at the weekly cabinet media briefing held this morning, co-spokesperson Plantations Minister Dr. Ramesh Patirana touched on current fertilizer shortages, stating that it was fertilizer importers that were aggravating the current problems.
පොහොර සම්බන්ධ ගැටලුවක් මේ රටේ තිබෙනවා. ප්‍රධාන ගැටලුව තමයි රටට ආනයනය කරන ලද පොහොර ක්‍රමානුකූලව බෙදා හැරීමට මතුවලා තිබෙන අපහසුතාවය. එකට හේතුවක් හැටියට අපි දකින්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට පොහොර ආනයනය කරන ලද සමාගම් දැන් ඔවුන්ට මේ නැවත ආනයනය කිරීමේ ගැටලුවක් මතුවලා තිබෙන නිසා ඔවුන් ඉතාම ස්වල්ප වශයෙන් තමයි මේ පොහොර බෙදා හැරීම සිදු කරන්නේ. ඒ නිසා විශාල ලෙස පොහොර භාවිතා කරපු සමහර ගොවි මහත්වරුන්ට අදාළ ප්‍රමාණය ලබා ගැනීමට නොහැකි වීම නිසා ඔවුන් කලබලයට පත් වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
Further addressing claims of a looming food crisis from expected low yields, the minister rejected the claims, saying that historical data shows no correlation between chemical fertilizer bans and low yields.
මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි විශ්වාස කරන වැනි අර්බුදයක් වෙන ඒත මම උතුවර සඳහන් කළේ කෘෂිකාර්මික ඵලදායීතාවයේ දත්ත බැලුවාම 2016-17 වසරවල පොහොර භාවිතය ගොඩක් අඩු වෙලා තිබුණත් මොකද මූර්ත සහනාධාරයක් මූල්‍ය සහනාධාරයක් බවට පත් වුණ ඔබතුමාට මතක ඇති යහපාලන රාජ්‍ය සමයේදී මුදල් ලබා දුන්නේ. එතකොට පොහොර ආනයනය ගොඩක් අඩු වෙලා තිබෙනවා. හැබැයි කෘෂිකාර්මික ඵලදායීතාවයේ එවැනි අඩුවීමක් ඔබතුමාලා කියන විදිහේ දරුණු අඩුවීමක් කඩා වැටීමක් සිදු වෙලා නොමැති බව සංඛ්‍යා ලේඛනවලට ප්‍රවිෂ්ඨ වෙන බොහොම පැහැදිලිව බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
In addition, responding to questions on difficulties faced by importers in the opening of lines of credit due to declining foreign reserves, The minister stated that the reserve situation is set to improve when the series of currency swaps are completed.
ඔබතුමා කියන ණයවර ලිපි නිකුත් කිරීම පිළිබඳව ගැටලුවක් මතුවලා තුනේ. ඒකට යම්කිසි ප්‍රමාණයක පාලනයක් මේ පසුගිය කාලේ සිදු වුණා. හැබැයි අපේ සංචිත ප්‍රමාණවත් අපි මේ මාසේ අන්තිමට ණය වාරිකය ගෙවන්න සූදානම් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒත් එක්කම අපි මුදල් හුවමාරු වශයෙන් බංග්ලාදේශයෙන්, ඉන්දියාවෙන්, ඒ වගේම චීනයෙන් මුදල් හුවමාරු කරන්න ඩොලර් ලබා ගන්න බලාපොරොත්තුව සිටින, ඒ වගේම අන්තර්ජාතික මූල්‍ය අරමුදලෙන් සෑම රටකටම ලබා දෙන ප්‍රදානයක් හැටියට ඩොලර් මිලියන 800ක් ලැබීමට නියමිතව තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා එහි සමස්තය හැටියට අපිට ඩොලර් බිලියන 1.5කට වඩා වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් ලැබෙනවා. ඉදිරි කාලෙදී මේ අපහසුතාවයන් මේ මාසේ අවසානයෙන් පසුව දැනට මුහුණ දෙන අපහසුතාවයන් බොහොම පැහැදිලිව ලිහිල් වෙන බව අපි සඳහන් කරන්න කැමැතියි.
In the meantime, the minister also touched on the recent revoking of permission granted to the owners of liquor producer Mendis and Company to recommence operations.
මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය හරහා උන්ට ගෙවී යුතු තිබුණු හිග බදු මුදල් ගෙවීමට එකඟ වීමෙන් පසු අදාළ පාර්ශවය එම ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු කරන්න අවසර ලබා දීලා තිබෙනවා. හැබැයි ඒතර ජනාධිපතිතුමත් කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය සඳහන් කළේ මේ පුද්ගලයන් හා සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච ලංකාවේ විශාල මූල්‍ය වංචාවක් සිදු වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ඔවුන්ගේ එක ව්‍යාපාරයක් මේ හා සම්බන්ධයෙන් බන්දි ගෙවලා එහෙම නැත්නම් පසුගිය බදු මුදල් ගෙවලා නැවත සාධාරණීකරණයකට ලක් කරගෙන යාම අපිට සාධාරණීකරණය කරන්න බෑ. ඒ නිසා තමයි මේ පිළිබඳ යෝජනාවක් හිටවන්නට කියලා කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ සෑම කෙනෙක්ම වගේ ඉල්ලා සිටියේ. කැබිනට් මණ්ඩල යෝජනාවක් නෙවෙයි, ඒක මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයට උපදෙස් ලබා දීමක් සිදු වුණා.
Now, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian Jayantha Kattagoda handed his letter of resignation as an MP today in order to facilitate the parliamentary return of Basil Rajapaksa. Following this, the SLPP then moved to propose the name of Basil Rajapaksa to the Election Commission to fill the parliamentary seat vacated by Kattagoda. Speaking to media, Party General Secretary MP Sagar Karyavasam stated that Basil Rajapaksa is expected to take oath as a Member of Parliament on the 8th of July. Meanwhile, the Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill as well as the Convention Against Torture, Other Cruel, Inhumane or Degrading Treatment or Punishment Amendment Bill were tabled in Parliament today and they passed without any changes.
There are a number of decisions we have taken during the last few months in order to activate the reconciliation process and fasten it. There are three main institutions. One is Office of National Unity and Reconciliation. We have empowered that organization, though it was brought by the previous government. Second organization is the Office of Reparation. We have retained the same office bearers who have been there until their period is over, and they are doing a good job. It is in the similar line that the government and the cabinet of ministers took a policy decision that Office of Missing Persons also should be strengthened, empowered to do their job. That is, we cannot have people missing forever. We understand there are parties who are interested in naming and shaming our country, coming out with total fake figures to say that 20,000, 30,000 different numbers are being given, have been missing. But our interest is to show from 2009 how many people are actually being missing, how to trace them, reduce their numbers, and to see a finality on that. If somebody actually had been missing, then we had to issue them the death certificate or recommend them to be paid compensation. And we had to get that numbers to a realistic line. It is in line with that we have appointed a new committee to man the Office of Missing Persons. I invite all the members of this assembly to look at these acts and give their concurrence. Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill, Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment Amendment Bill, then order under the Code of Criminal Procedure Special Provisions Act.
What we see in both the amending bills, we welcome, because it seeks to make it obligatory on magistrates to visit not just the police stations but also other detention centers and examine and see whether the detainees are properly treated. On paper, it's a good move, but one wonders why this window dressing is being made now. We have a situation in this country, time and again, we have judgments from the Supreme Court finding police officers guilty of torture, but they are not brought before court. You have this act to show people around the world that torture is an offence. What for? You don't prosecute them. How are you going to enforce a magistrate to visit police stations and other detention centers? Is there a mechanism here to do that? No. But even if you have a mechanism to enforce that, if the magistrates are not conscientious enough to do what the law has required them to do, can you by force have them do that? No, you can't. Torture in this country became an epidemic because of the provision in the PTA that enabled confessions made to police officers as admissible evidence. You can't amend the PTA. You have to repeal the PTA. The whole basis, the foundation of that law is flawed.
පසුගිය මාසයේ පළවුණු World Justice Project යන වාර්තාව අනුව ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ නීතියේ ආධිපත්‍යයේ ස්ථානය 66යි රටවල් 193කින් පාකිස්තානයේ 120 වෙනි ස්ථානයේ තිබෙන්නේ ලෝකයේ ප්‍රබලම ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය වන ඉන්දියාව අපට වඩා පහළින් 69 වෙනි ස්ථානය ඉරානය 109යි චීනය 68යි මා හිතනවා මෙතනින් අපිට කියවෙන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සර්ව සාධාරණ සමවිතම යහපත් වුණු නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වනවා කියලා නෙවෙයි සංසන්දනාත්මක මන්දයත් ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය යන්නත් නීතියේ ආධිපත්‍යය යන්නත් නිතරම සංසන්දනාත්මකව හා ගුණාත්මකව තිබෙන කාරණා දෙකක් නිසා සහ මූලධර්ම දෙකක් නිසාත්ය මේ අපි ඉදිරිපත් කර තිබෙන ඇතැම් අය කියන ආකාරයට වින්ඩෝ ඩ්‍රෙසින් වෙන්න පුළුවන් නමුත් අපි පටන් අරගෙන තිබෙනවා මේ ඒ අයට කරන්න බැරි වුණු ඒ අය තවමත් තුවාලයක් හැඩ තියාගෙන ඉන්නා වූ මේ ප්‍රධාන කාරණා දෙකක් එකක් LTT සිරකරුවන් හැට රඳවාගෙන ඉන්න අය රඳවුම්කරුවන්ට දෙන වද හිංසා පිළිබඳව ඊළඟට අතුරුදුවන් වුවන් කියලා නම් කර අය නිදහස් කර නැත්නම් ඔවුන් ඒ වෙනුවෙන් අපිට රජයක් හැටියට වගකීම් රජයක් හැටියට කරන්නට පුළුවන් ප්‍රතිකර්ම මොනවාද කියන පළමුවෙනි පියවර තැබීම පවා ඔවුන් දකින්නේ සිල්ලර ව්‍යාපාරයක් හැටියට මා හිතනවා එය ඔවුන් මේ රටේ නීතියට හා නීතියේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණයට කළ විහිළුවක් we bring these laws because Sri Lanka had to be Sri Lanka need to be a constitutional democracy honorable chair and that is the reason we are bringing we need to be a country which believes in dhamma we need to be a country which manages in dhamma
Now, taking a look at the Colombo bourse, the all-share price index ended at 7,792.21, following a loss of 2 points, and the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks too declined by 21.65 points to end at 2,931.31. Market turnover was 1.3 billion rupees. Now, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
We saw a bit of volatile sentiment today as well. So the volatility in the overall market has been continuing for some time now. Today we saw a spike in the index during the early hours of trading, probably around the first 30 minutes of trading, and then we saw a sudden drop in the index and the fall continued, and later during the day we saw it is changing in between the positives and negatives, and finally the market ended flat during the day with only a marginal loss of 2 points. Turnover was around 1.3 billion rupees at moderate levels. In addition to that, we saw overall the diversified financial sector coming into the limelight, and that too most of the illiquid counters in that sector were the ones that were trading, and retail activity was surrounded around these stocks, and that is another reason why the volatility is continuing.
Now, in the currency market, there was no change in the rupee once again today, as it closed at 202.89 cents against the US dollar. With that, let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.